All right, we're going to do our Aruba L2CX Access Switch Management and Connectivity Lab. So the first thing that we're going to do for this lab is to configure our SwitchB, or our aggregation switch. We're going to configure those trunk ports. We're going to configure a trunk port here, make this a point-to-point connection. And we're going to make this a trunk right here, and then we're going to make this an access port. So let's get going. I'm going to vary from the step-by-step directions here because I'm going to do kind of all three simultaneously. So first thing we're going to do is get logged into all three switches, and it's going to be admin to log in. Password is nothing, hit enter. It'll prompt you to change it, but we're going to hit enter twice and have no password just for lab purposes. Admin, enter twice, no password, enter twice, no password. And same for this one, enter, enter. All right, no password. So they looks kind of confusing. Got switch, switch, switch. Don't know which one's which, except for here. So I think what we'll do is go ahead and configure these, give them a name. So configure, and we're going to say host name. I'm going to say switch, all capitals, -B. All right, so now I know that one's different. I'm going to say the same thing over here. Configure, or C config, enter. And I'm going to say host name, switch, -C, enter. All right, same thing here. Config, switch, / or tac D. All right, awesome. So switch D is going to be our management. Switch C is going to be our access to our virtual PC. And this is going to be like our traffic cop. It's going to control both user VLANs and the management VLAN. SwitchB is. So let's get it configured. We got that done. So now we need to define some VLANs here. So I'm going to define VLAN 2 first. So I'm going to say VLAN 2, and then I'm going to give it a description. So I'm going to say description, and if you don't want to type it all the way out, just type in the first few characters and hit tab. It will auto-complete it. So I'm going to type in management, and hit enter. And I'm going to do VLAN 10, description, user data. All right, exit, exit, EX, enter. All right, so now we need to bring up the trunk ports for our interface 118 and 112. So what we're going to do is type in interface int 1 or 1/1/1/2, enter. So now we're in that interface sub config, and now we're going to do no shut. We're going to tell it to not shut down, so it turns it on. We're going to say no routing because we need to make it layer 2, and then we need to do VLAN trunk allowed, and now we need to tell it which VLAN. So we want, since it's a trunk, it's going to carry all the VLANs, or the VLANs that you specify. So I'm going to say 2/10 and hit enter. There we go. Now I got to exit that, and I'm going to go into my interface 1/1/8, which is up here in this point-to-point connection. I'm going to also tell this guy to no shut and exit. So I'm going to go into the sub interface and say no shut and exit. All right, so trunk here, and then point-to-point here. So, all right, so the no routing makes them layer 2 ports, and then of course the VLAN trunk allowed ensures that those VLANs are going to be carried across that trunk port. Okay, so another thing we're going to do for management and security really is to create a virtual routing and forwarding interface. So we're going to do that by typing virtual or VRF We're going to say MGMT2. All right, so exit. So we got that. And what that's good for is just to separate the VLAN 2 traffic link to the SwitchD and isolate the user data from the VLAN 10 layer. Isolate VLAN 2 from VLAN 10's routing tables. So it's essentially like two separate routing tables for those. All right, so now we're going to make we're going to assign some IPs to the VLAN interfaces, or the switch virtual interfaces, or the SVIs. So we need to give an IP address to VLAN 2. So we're going to tell it switch's virtual interface is going to be interface VLAN 2, because we're now going to assign an IP address to it, and we're going to say IP address 192.168.4.1/29, and we're going to attach that VRF attach MGMT2. We're going to exit that. We're going to go into interface VLAN 10, do the same thing, give it an IP address, but we're not going to put the VRF in there because we want to keep it separate. So I'm going to say interface VLAN 10 IP address going to be 10.10.0.254/24. All right, and then we hit exit. Okay, so that's all we need to do to configure our aggregate switch, or SwitchB. So I'm going to save this by typing write memory, enter. Now we can do a show run. We can look at our configs and double check and make sure everything is correct. We can do a show VLAN to see our VLANs. Yay! They're up and everything's okay. Awesome. So now we're going to go into, I'm going to minimize this. We're going to go into our SwitchC, and we've already created the name, so now we need to define those VLANs. So I'm going to tell it that I need a VLAN 2, I need a VLAN 10. Alrighty. And now I need to enable those trunk interfaces. So I am going to enable the 1.1.1.1.2 interface going to the aggregate, and we need to make that a trunk. So those two, because both ends have to be set to trunk. So we're going to say interface 1/1/2, and we're going to say enter. Then we're going to say no shut, no route. We're going to say VLAN trunk, no routing. And we're going to say VLAN trunk allowed 2,10. Enter. Enter. Okay, exit. That. All right, cool. So now we're going to say, hey, that port over here, 119, well, that goes to that virtual PC, and that needs to be an access port. Great. We're going to configure it. Here we go. So we're going to do a interface 1/1/9. Hit enter. So we're in that sub interface. We say no shut, no routing, and then we say VLAN access 10. Exit. Easy it's could be. All right, so now for our management VLAN, it does not have an IP address. So we're going to tell it, so let's just look real quick. Let's do a show run. Yeah, our management VLAN does not have an IP address. So we need to give it one. So we're going to say our interface VLAN 2 is going to have an IP address now of IP. It's going to be 192.168.4.2. /29. I'm going to exit. Now, on this switch, we need to give it a route, so because we don't really have a default gateway, but we're going to tell it to go to switch B so it can act as a default gateway or an upstream gateway. So we're going to say IP route any IP address, so 0.0.0.0 or IP4 address, .0, and then we're going to tell it to go to 192.168.4.1. Excellent. Okay, cool. So now the last thing we need to do is enable SSH so that we can remotely manage the switch. We can remote into it using PuTTY. So we're going to say SSH server VRF default. Alrighty, everything's good. We're going to do a write memory. Excellent. Everything is complete on switch C. So it's time to move over to switch D. Next.